So, if you play XDive, you already know the big news that Mega Man XDive will be closing down on September 7th. However, shortly after this news, the PR team of global version of XDive quickly stated this news will not affect the global servers, and they will be up indefinitely. So, understandably, a lot of players are confused and have a lot of questions. Fortunately, I've done a lot of research in the past and brushed up on the current events. So in this video, I'll give you the facts on this situation and answer if NebulaJoy can actually save XDive. Before I get into the nitty-gritty of it all, let's build some context. Mega Man XDive was originally created by Capcom Taiwan, also known as Taicom. Taicom is a subsidiary of Capcom. This basically means Taicom acts as their own company that is capable of making their own projects, but under the umbrella of Capcom. So Taicom can do their own thing while being funded by Capcom, while in return, Capcom has a ton of financial sway. NebulaJoy is a Chinese company that was built from the ground up. However, they are beholden to their shareholders, the second largest one being Tencent. Despite this, NebulaJoy has built a working relationship with Capcom. Through this, they got a couple of IP licenses to create games. Their first other work is Mega Man XZ Time Rip, which has been cancelled before completion in 2021, and Devil May Cry Peak of Combat, which has done so poorly, is the reason why Time Rift was cancelled. Now, no one really knows the details behind this, but Taicom's Mega Man XDive was easily their biggest project to date. Their plan was to make a server for Japan, and then spread globally. However, this didn't happen, as a deal was made by Capcom and NebulaJoy. The agreement being that NebulaJoy can't handle the global release. NebulaJoy was provided the source code to build the game for the Western audience. This means we have two separate versions of the game. Actually, scratch that. We somehow have 5 versions. Taicom handled the Japanese version and the Taiwan version meaning to be the global version. And NebulaJoy, for some reason, has a North American version, a European version, and a Latin American version. This isn't just servers, they're entirely separate versions from each other with different roadmaps. So Taicom is juggling 2 versions, while NebulaJoy is handling 3 versions. On top of this, the cooperation between Taicom and NebulaJoy is minimal, at best. To make this perfectly clear, these are 2 different companies running separate versions of XDive. This is why the global version and the Taiwan version have ran so differently for the longest time, and they don't even share redeem codes. I think that should be enough background information to get everyone up to speed. So let's talk about what's going on today. We'll start with the facts. Question 1. NebulaJoy's customer rep stated their servers will remain up indefinitely. Can they actually do this? The answer is yes, they can. But keep in mind that indefinite does not mean forever. Indefinite simply means they have no plan to shut the servers down. They could stay up for years, or they could stay up for just a couple of weeks. That is still a big unknown point, which is why we need to dig deeper to understand why many players, myself included, are very skeptical of this. Question 2. Can data be transferred from the Taiwan version to NebulaJoy's version? The short answer to this is no. A more detailed answer is NebulaJoy would have to make the Herculean task of transferring data from Taicom's databases to NebulaJoy's, while also creating mini accounts for the players who resided on the Taiwan version. Not only would this be a logistical nightmare to pull off, but it will also take an intense amount of manpower, let alone communication between the two companies. It's just not going to happen. Question 3 is the most important and will make or break this whole scenario. Can NebulaJoy actually make original content for XDive? The answer is yes, with like 5 asterisks. Now, very recently, the NebulaJoy rep 0x did a stream answering questions for about the first 15 minutes of the stream. And I really do mean like the first 15 minutes. You can honestly go and watch it yourself. I'll leave a link in the description. But to summarize it, he reiterates the NebulaJoy version of XDive is entirely separate from the Taiwan version, and that they have no plans whatsoever on closing their servers. The chat at this point asks, what is going to happen after all the content from the Taiwan version has been released? 0x answered this by saying, NebulaJoy does have a license and are able to produce content for the game. However, they are currently busy with other projects. Now, this statement is actually very contradictory to what has been told in the past, which is that NebulaJoy couldn't do anything beyond tinker with the shop, change up the banner roadmap, and fix bugs that were created from their own build. And they specifically said they could not change nor add anything beyond that. Plainly speaking, any real content updates to the NebulaJoy version of the game, even just being quality of life stuff, came from Taicom providing their builds from each version update, and NebulaJoy had to modify what was needed to make it work on their own build. Take this as you will. Now, this is the point where I'll start talking about my own take on all of this. If you were just here to learn about where everything stands, I provided everything that we know up to this point. You can rest assured that NebulaJoy will keep their servers on even after Taicom bows out. But if you want to know my opinion on all this, feel free to stick around. I'll give you guys a moment to decide. Alright, I'm going to be totally honest. I do not see NebulaJoy even lasting the rest of the year. And I'll explain why. If you've been in the XDive community for even a little bit, you would have at least heard that NebulaJoy isn't exactly known for their outstanding quality, let alone their reputation. They've done a lot of controversial things in the past, including those really awful XDive commercials, which should outright tell you how little they care about the quality of XDive. Going by the timeline, it feels like NebulaJoy is really just using XDive to fund their other projects after DMC Peak of Combat was a commercial flop. And it worked. Believe it or not, XDive is actually a success overall between different versions. It raked in a lot of money. But you also have to understand that 99% of the content came from Taicom, not NebulaJoy. So if NebulaJoy has to start making their own content, which includes level design, writing, and commissioning artists, that takes a serious amount of time and manpower, more than what they're using right now. Most of all, it'll cost more money. Let's keep in mind they had to cancel their own Mega Man game to make up for their losses. So I'm not even sure if they can even afford this. Now, there is one silver lining to this. NebulaJoy kinda needs to make money, and it's pretty clear that XDive does just that. So keep up the servers doesn't seem that far-fetched. So if you want to play the game continuously, I can see a world where they do this. But I have big doubts if they will make new content. And even if they somehow were able to, would it even be good? Can they even commission the same artist that has been making the 2D live models of the characters? I just don't see this working out without a drastic change in direction. Based on everything I researched, I don't see this working out, especially with how they pretty much speed ran through all the banners for the sake of catching up with the Taiwan version. Which, in hindsight, was a seriously bad plan. They now only have a few months worth of banners now. Once that dries up, they need to have some sort of answer to convince the player base that this won't be the equivalent of just sunsetting the game. I'll be honest though, as a fan of DiVE, I would like to be wrong, and somehow NebulaJoy pulls this off, and somehow make this good. If it's good, I wouldn't mind starting over. Despite my serious doubts, Mega Man is one of my favorite franchises, and I would like to continue supporting it. Anyway, I hope you all got something out of this information. Remember that even in these uncertain times, we're all Mega Man fans that want to see this franchise thrive. And ultimately, we've been through worse. Thanks for watching.